Okay, so hi everyone. I am doing this video because I'm a pretty big fan of Cartoonist Kayfabe, and one of the things I really enjoyed recently was watching them just go through old comics. Now, that's one of my favorite things to do, and this past weekend was the Gem City Comic Con in Dayton, Ohio, which is a pretty fun show if you like buying comics. And so I got a big stack right here that I thought I'd just go through. I don't mind the length of these videos. I like having them on in the background while I'm working on comics and stuff. So I'm going to go through this entire stack. I don't know how long this is going to go, and just kind of show off some of the things that I bought and talk about some of the reasons that I bought them. This probably will interest no one, but again, I'm a Kayfaber, and I thought it would be cool to just kind of go through my stuff that I buy and why. And I started off here. Michael T. Gilbert was a guest at the con, and Mr. Monster is a real blind spot in my reading. I remember seeing Mr. Monster all over the place when I was a younger kid. I'm definitely in the same demographic as the fellas who do kayfabe. I was a Wizard reader, and there were Mr. Monster ads sometimes, but I never ran across them. So he was there. He was charging for the book, and then for $20 extra, he'd draw a Mr. Monster in there. Now, I haven't cracked into this yet, but I have been looking into him. And one cool thing about Mr. Gilbert was that he is he did a bunch of cool alternative comics down in New Paltz, New York, which is around where I'm from. I'm currently in Southwest Ohio, but I'm from New York. So I'm definitely going to seek those out, and I am pretty pumped to be checking out some of this stuff. It's long overdue, and it looks great. Let's look at that. That's very cool. Also at the show was Chris Bacalo. I know he probably gets that all the time. And I had some sadness happen this past week. We had a flood in my basement, and I lost a good 4 or 5 long boxes of comics. So most of my comics that he worked on that I like are not around anymore. They are a sopping mess. But this one was still around, Generation X #1 with the chromium cover. I kind of like some of the cover enhancements. This is one of the better ones, I think. And I just love his crazy style. I wasn't really I've never been a big X-Men reader, but he was a really nice fella. He definitely took time to talk to all the fans, which I think is cool. All right, enough signature stuff. This is all. The rest of these books are either dollar books, $2 books, 2 for $1 books. That's what I'm looking for when I go to shows. So the first thing is I got the entire series of Punisher POV. Never read it before, but Bernie Wrightson drawing the Punisher, Jim Starlin writing it. That's got to be good, right? Look at that one. So cool. And prestige format, which is cool. I love these were the books that I definitely could never have afforded when I was a kid. I had a very, very strict budget, so anything above like $1 or $2 was out of my price range. So I'm excited to look at these. I also bought this Punisher War Journal. This is I had this when I was a younger Chris. I think I got this as a Christmas present, which is a weird Christmas present to give someone. But this was like the height of the Punisher's powers and stuff as far as selling books. So I don't remember anything about it, but I did get this for 75 cents. So I just figured, yeah. I picked up this Adventures of Superman. It's Superman. It's got David Lapham on Superman, which I thought I got to see that. And there's this cool thing where he puts a wrecking ball in a thing here and uses it as kind of like a pea shooter. I thought that was pretty fun. And the all of the sound effects. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I never would have thought of Lapham on Superman, but he I'm interested to read it. It looks cool. And there's a second story in here by Tim Seeley and Mike Norton. Mike Norton's a pretty solid superhero artist. He's a lot of fun too. Okay. I also really like, I buy Superman Family. As far as Superman artists, weirdly my favorite is Kurt Schaffenberger. I like that he has like a super rounded, just sort of, I don't know, I've just always really liked his style. Tom DeFalco wrote these. That doesn't like make me super excited. One thing that's I thought was funny here is whoever drew this Super Dog story like totally is ripping off Neil Adams there. That is a super rip. Here we go. Here's some Kurt Schaffenberger. I don't know why. I like romance comics, and he kind of reminds me of a romance comic guy. There you go. He's a Poisonal pal of mine. That's, yeah, not everybody's taste. Also not to everybody's taste would be this comic is another enhanced comic. This is Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. This was published in, I think, 97, I think. And you can tell from the first page, this is Marvel just trying to take everything from the, there, it's one of those. And there's like, there's a couple of them in here. Like I think every issue has like 2 or 3 pages where you have to kind of turn it. But really aping the Image Comics style. Howard Chaykin wrote it. I mean, he's a big Nick Fury guy. And again, most of the covers I think are stupid weird covers because I don't think anybody was lining up to buy a Nick Fury book back in the day. Yeah, it's trash, but good trash. I bought this Superman and Batman Generations. I used to really love John Byrne. I still love John Byrne, but he's kind of seems terrible now. I mean, like maybe he was always terrible, but this is one that I never saw again because it's the prestige format. I don't know when this came out. This was 99. Yeah, I wasn't going to put $5 toward this in 99. I guess this one gets pretty far out there. It's kind of in like told all in one go, so 39 all the way to the future. There's a bunch of them. I only found the first one. Cyberforce 4, I told you I like these covers. I've been kind of going back and buying some of the older Image books. It's pretty easy to find them for like, you know, 2 for $1. I read this one over, and it's kind of, you can read it. Like I can follow what's going on in most of this thing. But this was catnip for me back when it originally came out. I was a big Cyberforce fan. I like this guy here. There's a cool page I like at the end. It's kind of quaint. That's it. That's what I like right there. Savage Dragon. I've been thinking about putting together a Savage Dragon run. There's so many issues. I've read so little of it. I read a little bit of it in like the mid-50s. But you gotta respect that like it's still coming out. It changes all the time. The dude knows what he's doing, and yeah, this is an early one, so I may start checking these off as I go through. Let's see here. These are some just funny animal books. These are Cold-Blooded Chameleon Commandos by Blackthorn. There, look at that. If I had to go back and over again, I may not have bought this one. There, look at that. I do find this funny. You could have bought an embroidered satin tour jacket for $42.50. I love this kind of stupid stuff, like trying to make money off of different things. I'm looking forward to when the boys get to the issue of Wizard where they're selling gold rings with the Wizard logo on them. If I ever saw one on eBay, I might be tempted to buy it. I might. Hamster Vice 2. Again, this is for Eternity, which is funny because that last one, Hamster Vice, was Blackthorn. I don't know much about the publishing histories of these, but funny animal books. I buy them when I see them. Prez 2, this got a lot of good ink when it came out. I really enjoyed Mark Russell's run on, he did the Flintstones book for DC, which I picked up just because it popped up and I just thought it might be interesting. And I kind of found that to be a lot of fun and a lot more, have a lot more depth than I would have expected from a Flintstones book. Again, this was a 2 for $1 situation, so I'll dip in and check it out. I picked up Slash Maraud off of some of the good stuff that Mr. Rugg mentioned about this book. Paul Galassi. Art. I found issues 1, 3, and 4. I do not think I will be binding them in a book, but I really like that cover. I think that's really cool right there. And so we'll see what this is about. I may wait until I can find the rest of the issues to kind of read through it. That's kind of my standard operating procedure for stuff like this. I got these out of a dealer that was selling 20 books for $5. So I really had to scrape through. This was an easy pull, but you'll see later that there's some books where it was just clear they were picked up to make that happen. The $5 pull. Namor, another crazy cover. Namor. This is one of the worst ones I've seen. I'd never really noticed how simplistic these pages were until I started kind of really considering some of the stuff Jiley is put out. They are really like as simple as it gets as far as just silhouettes and stuff, but I mean beautiful. Like, look at that. That's so cool. That's really neat. I like that. I also picked up this issue of Phantom Stranger. Mike Mignola did the art. This came out in '87. I had no interest in anything DC in '87, but Mignola looks good. Again, I don't know much about the Phantom Stranger, but I definitely will seek out these other ones if they're all drawn by the man. Some newer books, Invisible Republic 2 and 3, Gabriel Hardman. I really like his style. The art, I think it's really fine stuff. Again, I know really nothing about the book, but I will flip through it, and I bet I'll dig it. Plasmer. So I bought this for 2 reasons. One, this was one of the books where it was I was trying to fill out that $5 to get 20 books. And this is I remember Plasma. This is a Marvel UK book. It's got cards in it, and this was, I think, part of the lawsuit that Jim Shooter. Again, I'm not a comic historian, but the way that I heard it was this factored into them having to change the name of Defiant Comics book Plasm to Warriors of Plasm. That they had this Plasmer book coming out, and I think my memory is that my comic book dealer in my hometown really pushed this on me, and this was one of the first times where I did not listen to the dude. Like, he really thought, he was like, you should pick that up, that's going to be good. And I looked at it and I thought, nah, not for me. But 20 comics for $5. I will probably release it from its plastic cage and see what's going on with it. 7 to Eternity. Sometimes I get these books because I'm a teacher, and if I find newer books, you'll see some here. There's some books that I don't particularly care about, but I know I can drop them on some kids. And this is a nice looking book. The art's cool. Jerome Opeña, who works with Rick Remender a whole lot, definitely has a cool vibe to it. That's really cool there. I don't know that I would pick it up with issue 5, but it's all about just checking stuff out. Death of Love. I got 3 issues of this. I thought this looked like it was some fun. It came out this is a pretty recent book, 2018. I don't remember ever seeing it on the shelves, but I got issues 3, 4, and 5. All right. Black Cloud. I thought this looked older than it ended up being. This was published just 2 or 3 years ago. Jason Latour, Ivan Brandon, those are the guys that I was most familiar in this about. I really like this. I've only done a flip through, but I like that a whole lot. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, there's a right there too. So yeah, that's a number 1. So I don't know if there's probably more of it than that, but I thought I'd check it out. I also thought I would buy an issue of Spawn. These were in the 2 for $1 bin, and I have not bought an issue of Spawn since like issue 17 or 18. I have a buddy who's bought every issue of Spawn. He owns every issue of Spawn. It is a standard pull for him. And Spawn's coming up on 300 issues, which is kind of cool. I wish, well, we wish a lot of things. I thought that was cool, though. I remember this guy. I had that toy, Over to Kill. There he is. And I guess the boys have talked about him on Kayfabe as far as him being drawn in that Stan Lee video. So hopefully I didn't ruin Spawn 286 for anybody. Punisher War Journal 11, the Flood in My House. I had been slowly putting together a run of the early Punisher War Journals with the Jim Lee issues, and the Flood totally ruined them all. They are garbage. So when I saw this, I figured why not rebuild the boat. Yeah, this is Jim Lee pencils with Klaus Janson inks. Look at that. This is not the kind of thing that would turn my crank now, but back in the day, this was what it was all about. And I always like it when the Punisher's wearing that headband. That seems to be a Jim Lee specialty. Yeah, that's cool right there. So put that aside, I'll get to it. Paper Girls goes really, really fast in my classroom whenever I have issues to give out to kids. So these were all 2 for $1. So I got 6 through 10, and you can drop this on a student who's not really interested in reading, and they dig it. It's a fun book. It's I love that they are pretty committed to just having one creative team on here. It's pretty challenging. This is also the kind of book that as a teacher, I teach English in Southwest Ohio, and sometimes you got to have like a path to get kids interested in comics and then reading. So like I'm sure this is the elevator pitch to a lot of people, but did you like Stranger Things? You might like Paper Girls, and then you can kind of move kids onto other comics, other books. So I really dig Paper Girls a whole bunch. And yeah, so these will be gone probably by the time I post this video. Someone will grab them from my classroom. I don't know why they made this. I'm glad they did. I'm super glad to have it in like one collection. But this is the Splitting Image 80-page giant. I really, you can find all the Splitting Image collection in back issue bins for $1 wherever. But it is nice to have it all in one place. I definitely owned this when I was buying anything that had the Image Comics logo on it. I did not understand sort of the meta thing that was going on with it beyond maybe some of the surface here like this, like making fun of the Image Comics characters, Spasm. But definitely looking at it now, look at that. Definitely looking at it now, I pick up more of the nuance of what's going on here. This is I like this rundown page at the beginning where they run down everybody's name, and I guess Eric Larson wasn't down to play. Brat Lifeguard, Val J. Tasmania. This also includes a reprint of Normal Man versus Megaton Man, or I guess Normal Man Megaton Man. Although I'm sure they end up, they end up fighting. I predicted it. So again, cool. If this looks good to anybody watching this, you can get the books for 50 cents. But if you can find it like this, it's very cool. Don Simpson, Jim Valentino, cool stuff. Steve Scroce, this is Maestros. I like Steve Scroce's stuff. I especially love the work that he did on Alan Moore on that Youngblood. That was we got too little of that, and that's a bummer. So I don't know much about this book. The Image publishes a lot of books, and I don't really follow closely with all of them, but I thought that this one, at the very least, would be rated a page through. I got issues 3 and 4 of Spy Seal, Rich Tommaso. I love Rich Tommaso. I do dig his like just super fine, simplistic style. And I guess clearly here he's aping a little bit of Hergé, Tintin, and it's cool. I have issues 1 and 2 somewhere. I'm hoping they weren't caught in the flood in my basement, but yeah, and so they're cool. He just also got done doing, I think he got done doing an amazing run on IDW. Did a Dick Tracy book, which was a lot of fun. That Dick Tracy movie made me a big Dick Tracy mark. I'll use some of the boys' terms there. So I'm down for that. I'm also a pretty big fan of like when in like 70s Marvel and DC stuff, when it seems like The Exorcist was a big deal, and so they were desperately trying to figure out ways that they could ride. I know there's other factors that go along with this, like that they were finally able to do some horror stuff. I've always wanted to read this one-off Headless Horseman Rides Again. I like some of the horror stuff. I don't know that Marvel ever did anything more at the Headless Horseman the way that they did with some of the other monster characters they brought back, but there he is. It's kind of silly looking. Well, I think I paid $2 for this, but that's cool. I also got this Demon Hunter book. I think this is more in line with what I was talking about there. Somebody trying to figure out, like, all right, this came out in 75, so it's a little after The Exorcist, but yeah, it's not usually what I'm looking for in a Demon Hunter. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I pick up these DC, thicker DC collections, mainly because they hold up well over time, and I like to read books like in their original, the way they were published. Like any nice DC collection of horror stories, this has some Bernie Wrightson in there, BRNI. I guess that was a little change. That's some vintage Wrightson there. I dig that. Doing the Spectre. So that's fun. These are mainly reprints. This is also Adventure, the Viking Prince. This blew me away a little bit, and the reason I picked this up is I didn't realize, I think it says it on here, there it is, it says this came out in 1955, and just looking at Joe Kubert's, like, what he was doing here, like, it's crazy, like, compared to what you could be reading in 1955, as far as, like, comic books, why wouldn't you be reading anything that he did? Like, it's just heads above a lot of other cartoonists working for DC, in my estimation at the time. So I don't know if he did all the art in here. Again, this is one of those ones that just kind of holds together. So I was glad to get that. Ooh, this is one of my favorite finds. I've been putting together a collection of 13, going on 18. This is John Stanley. This is published in '64, so I'm guessing this is sort of like aimed at like the Archie readership, and I think Seth is a big fan. They came out with a bunch of John Stanley collections, and Seth did a lot of the design on them. And one of the things I love about 13 going on 18 is that the characters are all like super mean to one another. There's almost no redemptive things going on with the characters. They're just kind of nasty to one another, and that's it's very Seinfeldian. And Judy's my favorite character because you can see here Judy in her teenage years is kind of a svelte young teenager, but he also does these flashbacks where Judy Jr. is more of a tubby type, and again, just super mean to everybody. that she runs across, which is pretty funny. So I got a couple issues of this. I don't find these all the time, but I was excited to find this one. Conan the Barbarian. Again, this is one of those giant size. There were two in the box. I had to choose one. I chose the one with Gil Kane on art. I've been going through a Conan thing. I don't know exactly why. I know that Marvel just picked up the license for Conan. I bought the first issue. I thought it was fine. I did not pick up any of the other ones. I've been more interested in picking up the older Bronze Age issues. It's and like, look at that. That's pretty cool. Who's inking them there? Tom Sutton. That's cool. This will probably be a good read. Roy Thomas. This issue of The Demon. I'm slowly getting all my Kirby DC stuff. I was so thankful that when we had the flood, that it didn't hit that was my first thought, was did it like hit my Kirby comic pile, because I don't put most of my Kirbys in bags. I like to have them out. I like to look at them. I like to page through them, and luckily they were saved. So this is issue number 12. I think I'm close to a full run on The Demon. Sans number 1, because they do pinch you on the first issues, but most of the other ones are pretty easy to find if you're kind of diligent about it. Frankenstein Monster. Again, I do like the monster comics that Marvel and DC were kind of putting out. Frankenstein, I love this fur vest that he wears. I know it's a stupid reason to buy a comic, but that's my favorite version of Frankenstein, is the Son of Frankenstein mode, where it almost just looks like he's wearing a big piece of carpet. And I don't know if there's some skiers on here. This is a 75, so probably right in line with some of those other monster comics I pulled. Again, here's a Lois Lane comic. Unfortunately, most of the Lois Lanes are done by Schaffenberger, and I pulled one that is not done by him, but these crack me up, because especially as they get later on in the series, I like to have a kind of misguided laugh when I look at some old comics, and a lot of these Lois Lanes are clearly middle-aged men grappling with trying to tell feminist stories featuring Lois Lane, but not really understanding like what that is. I haven't looked at this one, so hopefully I'm not painting it with too broad a brush, but I will look at it. I just thought the cover of this was cool. I'm from New York. It's Kurt Swan, who's like the number one Superman guy. He's not my favorite Superman guy, but of this time. He's pretty staid. But, man, you gotta respect. He has a hell of a association with the character. So, and then just the the picture cover, photo cover. That's cool. Foxhole number 15. Super. I've never seen. I have a rule where if I see a book like this and it's old and I've never heard of it before, I buy it. So this is the Super Comics Seal of Quality, 1964. So I don't know. I guess this is not a code-approved book. Would you be surprised to know that Foxhole is a pretty racist comic book by today's standards? Like, look at that. Yowza. But cool cover, and just kind of a weird book. Foxhole. Talking about weird covers, here's a cool Joe Kubert cover for The Losers. And I don't know if this is a downgrade for anybody. This was actually what sold me on the book as I opened it up, and it's John Severin doing the stories. I love John Severin. I think most of the place where I know him from would be Cracked Magazine in the 90s. But his parodies for Cracked Magazine were always the highlight of those. That was the thing that would get me to buy Cracked Magazine, was nothing else except for those. And then there's another story in here. I don't know what this is. It's kind of ripping a little bit, so I'll leave it alone. Starreach. I don't own any Starreach, and I found it in a bin. And this is a P. Craig Russell Parsifal. I know one of the things that people like about Star Reach is sort of the different strips and stuff. I haven't had a chance to really look at this to see who is included. I know that there's some major people who came through this book. John Workman. Okay. That's cool. Hot Stuff, number 5. Bought this entirely because there is a Richard Corbin story that I've never read in here. I've never seen this story. I'm definitely in sort of a mindset of this, so I dig it. I don't know about the rest of the stuff. The back cover is kind of neat. Maybe not, but I think it's all right. But that front cover, I mean, clearly that is what you want for your front cover there. That's gonna get you to spend your $1.50. Hot Stuff number 5. Kong the Untamed. Somebody thought they were going to get $12 for this, I guess. It's Bernie Wrightson cover. I can't imagine that he's on the art, but I haven't even opened this up. This was another one of the 20 for $5. It's a number 1. It's maybe it's interesting, maybe not. Ooh, this was a fun find. IDW did this. I don't know much about Judge Dredd. Again, when I was in my most comic buying times, that was definitely Judge Dredd was not on the bill of fare. But well, look at this. If you've never seen it before, because I never had. It's a cool collection where it's alternately in color and black and white. So you get some color stuff, some black and white stuff. It goes back and forth. It's sized nicely. Yeah, it's cool. So that's Steve Dillon of Preacher fame. He's no longer with us, I guess, which is sad. But ooh, baby. I did jump to the end, and it ends with a pretty terrible joke. But yeah, fantastic. For $1? Sure. I bought some of these Josie and the Pussycats blank covers. I like the blank covers. My son is a bit of an artist, and I think this would be right up his alley. He liked the Gem and the Holograms too. So I got 3 of them. At least one of them's going to my son. One of them I'm going to put aside now because I promised a student. There's a student that I have who's a pretty good cartoonist, and I want to drop that on her and see what she does with it. So this is, I think these were maybe 2 for $1. I got 3 of them. Dracula 1 and 2 still in their plastic cases. You guys just talked about this on not too long ago. I really liked seeing it. I'd never really read it before, and I thought I would check it out. More cards. Every time I open these, there's just cards everywhere. So 1 and 2. It was kind of a big swing here, this Dracula adaptation. It's pretty cool. Sadly, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a big romance comic fan, and this was the only romance comic that I could find, but I got it for 50 cents. The Charlton books are it's funny how bad the paper is that they are printed on. Sometimes you'll get one and it's clear that they were using just the end bits of paper that were left over to print their books. Some of these are crazy, wrong-headed, really weird takes on what love is, and yeah, they're interesting to look at from a perspective in the 21st century. And this was a big genre, and it's, aside from a couple of rumblings here and there, I know there was that Twisted Romance book that Kate Skelly and Alex DeCampi, I think that's that creator's name. At any rate, I love the genre, and it's a shame that it's kind of laid fallow for a long time. Anytime I see runs of books that I've never really heard of, I pick them up. So I got a full run of The Last American, which is pretty cool. This is Epic. Let's see. It's yeah, it's a good looking book. Good Night. Is that Good Night Poughkeepsie? Yeah. Well, that's kind of like I said when I mentioned New Paltz. That's kind of where I'm from. So I wonder how much Poughkeepsie is actually in the book. Michael McMahon. I don't know Michael McMahon at all. I'm sure that kind of displays my ignorance. But the covers are cool. Book looks kind of post-apocalyptic. That's very cool. I think is that Kevin O'Neill, probably, maybe. Yes, very cool. Cool book. I also got this Steel Grip Starkey and the All-Purpose Power Tool. 6 issues of this. I think this is Alan Weiss. They're in pretty good shape. That's pretty much all I have to say about those. Dinosaur Rex from Upshot Graphics. I've never heard of Upshot Graphics before. It's a very, maybe this is like in the wake of Cadillacs and dinosaurs. I don't know. I looked at these and then put them back. They're not really worth the, they weren't my faves. But I got to 3 of the 3-issue series, and it's the kind of thing where if you see like 3, you might not pick it up. You see 1, you might not pick it up. But if they're all together, give it a shot. I got these Ray Bradbury comics. This is issue 1 and 2. This has the Corbin stuff. This has some Harvey Kurtzman and Matt Wagner. Definitely down for these. Oh, this is kind of a weird find at a comic show that's kind of tailored to older superhero books. But this is a Big Questions 12. Anders Nielsen. It's a pretty cool drawn and quarterly collection. Again, I picked this up. I don't know much about him as an artist, but I picked this up because nobody else at that show was going to pick this up. So I figured I'd be the one. Revolver, Fantastic Fables. When my daughter saw this, she said, "Oh, it's another kissing comic." I picked it up because I thought maybe it might be a romance comic. It is definitely more of a horror comic. There is, in the back here, a very, it's labeled as a paid advertisement. There's a very crazy looking superhero story. It's like 3 pages long. Yeah, just weird looking. It's pretty funny. Trekker #1, it's a color special, it's 1 issue. I'd never heard of Trekker. Again, these are comic shows like this are meant for trying stuff out. So this is a good way to try stuff out. Ooh, this was a cool find. All 3 issues of Space Hawk. I guess this is a reprint. I think it's a reprint. Again, I'm showing my ignorance. Basil Wolverton doing sort of a... It looks crazy. Oh, it looks so good. Love the aliens. Like, look at that. Space Hawk. Again, my sometimes I don't talk about the books that I buy, even with friends, my 1 or 2 friends who like comics, because I don't have the vocabulary for it, but I do have the vocabulary to say that these are awesome. Look at that. With 1 lightning blow, Space Hawk crushed the planetoid monster. I mean, you can't go wrong. Sadly, I did lose all of my Madman comics in the last flood, or this most recent flood. Hopefully, the last flood. I know I didn't have 15 before this show. It was 50 cents. I had sort of dropped off Madman at this point. It was a big, important book to me for a year or 2 years. I was the guy wearing this shirt in high school, and yeah, I'll check it out. Parody Press Magnets Robot Dismantler. I don't know. I kind of regret buying this book. One thing that impressed me while I was looking through it is there's Spasm, making fun of Plasm. I can't believe how many of these Parody Press back issues they were. They parodied absolutely everything. Old Blood, Headbanger, Dorker Images, Quantum Creep. I had this one, the Pummeler. I remember I was excited for that. That had a Sam Keith cover. The Sewage Dragoon, $5, man. Good on you, Parody Press. Mike Grell, Maggie the Cat. I recently read some of Mike Grell's John Sable Freelance. I love his sketchier style, or I guess it's not sketchy. This came out in '96, so I think this was probably well after Shaman's Tears was kind of given the boot by Image. I love Shaman's Tears too. But Maggie the Cat is, I guess, sort of the opposite number to put this back in. I want to protect this one forever. Okay, I think these are a couple of DC #1s. These are perennial back issue All-Stars. Underworld, Atari Force, and Silverblade. I don't have a ton of interest in any of these, but they're #1s, so I don't know. The #1 issue is kind of an art, and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez is like just really, really good. I enjoy his stuff when I see it, so I will check it out. Science fiction, I guess this one's probably in the wake of Star Wars, Force, Atari. What could go wrong? Oh, besides that John Stanley book, this was the best find. 50 cents for the Max Immortal #1. I read it. It is as messed up as anything else, and it really whetted my appetite to go hunt the rest of these down. There is no way that this was going to make it into my house when I was a kid. There's just no way it was going to happen. So I guess I should take advantage of being an independent young comic reader on the go now, and I should pick up the rest of these when I see them. But damn, this thing was really something else. Blew my mind a little bit. And honestly, it blew my mind a little bit, and like in the realm of superhero parody books, like they've been parodied to death, so it really takes something special to kind of really like make it stand up and take notice. This almost like negates any other parodies that I've read, and some even like, you know, books that take themselves so seriously. But it's crazy. It's a crazy book. I love it. These are a couple of Image Comics rebuys. Super Patriot, Union. I don't think I bought Union on the first go around when it came out. My comic buying dollars only went so far as a young man. So take a look at them. I also picked a bunch of random issues of Supreme. This was funny because I was kind of like going back and forth on like, do I want to buy these Supreme books? Do I really like, am I going to look at them? And then I remembered that these were like 50 cents a piece, and life is short, so I picked them up. Got Pitt on that one. Prophet. I don't know when this clicked over to the Alan Moore Supreme stuff. I really love the Alan Moore Supreme stuff. That's a parody of superheroes in another way. That's really fun. So that's a cool one. Tribe is fun, and Boof and the Bruise Crew. I'm a big fan of. I buy a lot of books. I'm very into holiday books, and I picked this up because it's a Halloween Boof. I think most Boof aficionados prefer the adjectiveless Boof, but yeah, we'll try this out. And then Mighty Man. I think this is a newer Mighty Man story. I don't know if this is like a collection of backups or something, but this was published not too long ago. Looks fun. Some more recent Vertigo stuff. Last Gang in Town 1 through 3. I don't know how long this series ran, but again, when you see a sustained run like that, you kind of pick it up and you want to see what. There's some good, fun cartooning in here. I really dug this. It's definitely harkens back to a different era of comics making. I dig this stuff. So, yeah, it's fun. Lake of Fire, again, issues 1 and 2, Image Comics. I really like the way Nathan Fairbairn, this is his, he colored and lettered it. Matt Smith illustrated it. I like the way that Matt Smith draws noses. It's a very random reason to pick up a book, but I think he does the best noses in the business. You can quote me. And then I picked up The Killer Inside Me. Yeah, figured I'd check it out. I think I have the first issue somewhere. Like I said, I'm a sucker for the covers. I am a real sucker for a terrible cover, and this is one of the worst that I've ever seen. It's I think they called this, like, it's got this acetate overlay. I think that's how you say it. Marvel's had this, but the actual cover is just a background and not a very good one. And this is Fantastic Four Atlantis Rising. Who is this comic for? I don't know. This was made in '95, where I think they were just trying to print as many books as possible. And this was June '95. This was an expensive book. This is $4. I didn't know anybody who could afford $4 to put this on top of the books that they were buying. I guess $4 is now the industry standard, but back in the day, man, it was $2 or bust for me. I bought, these were, I guess, this is, Marvel did these kind of, I don't know, like these animated covers, and I bought them for two reasons. One, like I said, I'll drop these on my students. I try to give them newer stuff because they're familiar with, the movies and stuff. But these are also, terrible. There's no way to hold on any of the one images. I don't know exactly what they're, celebrating here. So, yes. This is a buddy of mine, his son. I was waiting online for Mr. Bachalo's autograph, and he wanted this autograph, which is nice. He drew all over it. That's fun. I bought that Spawn twice. Let's see. Halo Jones. Here's what I'm talking about. I lost all of my DC and all my Christmas comics, so I picked up this one. I don't think I've ever seen that one before. This is the Paramilitary Christmas Special. This might be my most bought book. I buy this all the time when I see it because I forget that I have it. It's great. It's really good. These Marvel Holiday Specials. They have great, these are, the first two have some amazing Art Adams covers. And this one has a lot of sentimental value. It's got some cool stories in there. There's a Mike Golden. You know what? I know that this has been going on forever, but there's a Mike Golden Wolverine story in here that is just not to be missed. I don't know if this has been reprinted anywhere, but it's great. I love the way that he squashes everybody down, and he really knows what he's doing. So good. This is a Stan Lee scripted Spider-Man Christmas story. A Punisher, but there's a lot of Punisher Christmas stories. I don't know why everybody puts the Punisher in a Christmas story. And then this is one that I actually dropped on some kids, a Thanos Gamora Christmas story, which I think when I read it as a kid, who cared? But now it kind of has some resonance because of those movies. So that's fun. All right, we're getting to the bottom of the barrel here. I got three more things. This was, I think, $1. The Marvel Super Special Return of the Jedi. Al Williamson drew this. Really, really awesome stuff in here. sort of done with Star Wars. Is like, you know, I like the new movies, but kind of the fans these days I find very hard to deal with. So that's cool. Good find. And then my other recent thing is I like to pick up these big treasury-sized comics, and most of the time a dealer's selling them for 10, and this dealer was selling them for 10, but this he had a couple of $5 ones that were a little more beat, and I don't care how beat they are, I just kind of want the big stories. So this is a Batman one, and this is a Conan the Barbarian one. The Batman one has a variety of stories, so you get your quote unquote Bob Kane story here, and you get just kind of all over history, some Carmine Infantino, yeah. You get some big, toward the back here you get some nice big Neil Adams Batman. A weird Batman story to choose to adapt here. It's got the this pilot character. I can't remember what his name is, but that's a cool one. And then this one is my favorite one. Like I said, I've been really into Conan the Barbarian lately. And before you wonder, I already have the Red Tails collected. That's my second favorite treasury of all time. First being 2001. That should be everybody's favorite. And these are great at this size. Like, this is not all Barry Windsor Smith, but it's a lot of Barry Windsor Smith. And this is last on the pile, but first to be read. Last on the pile, first to be read. And I like it when they do these. I think there's a couple of different Conan maps. Okay, so that's what I bought. This was long. I don't know that any would be interested in this at all. But again, like I said, I am a big fan of Cartoonist Kayfabe, and I dig that stuff. If you're at all interested, I do comics about teaching. This is one of my mini zines that I collected. Again, very focused. I don't know how many people are interested in comics about teaching in inner city schools, but I draw them. And I'm currently working on illustrating my third book for Workman Publishing, which if I had thought a little bit more about, I might have had here, but I don't. So, all right. Thanks, folks.